Welcome back, all my 40k fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you my list that will be facing off against Lane and his Death Watch later tonight. Friends of the channel may note that we have been locked in a rivalry of Death Watch versus Necrons, and this will be the final conclusion of our battles. Well, for now at least. Lane is going to be working on his Botan here pretty soon. He just picked up all the infantry that he wants to run, and he's getting them painted up and ready to go. But he, well, since I didn't make it out to the RTT, he wanted to hunt my vault. And as many on the channel said as well, they love to see the vault on the channel. So I will be bringing my Canoptic Harvest with the vault. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do turn on the bell for notification. Get notified on all the content we bring here in the channel, including Lane's list, as well as the battle report and the post game that we bring you here on the channel later this week. So, those who have seen, I've been working really hard in the Canoptic Harvest, and I will continue to. Canoptic units and Canoptic Harvests have kind of been my Necron staple. I always like running the Canoptic units. I love the spiders. I love all those things. Actually, funny little side note, I have a commander deck that it is a spider legend that leads the commander deck, and it's all spiders in there too. So, I got a thing for spiders. I like them. They're cool. I've always liked spiders, so well, why not? I like them in 40k as well. So, Canoptic Harvest has been something that I've been working with for a while. And I think I've made a lot of great progression to get a list that I'd be comfortable taking to a GT, because obviously most of the time when we go to a GT, we're expecting to try to win. We want to try and go 5-0 and take the whole thing. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a list that I feel comfortable and confident behind, that I feel like I could go 5-0 with. And I feel like I've gotten a Canoptic Harvest, a Canoptic list, a Necron list that is getting very, very close to being at that point of being able to compete. I'm not going to say that, oh, it's a guaranteed 5-0, because in any game of 40k, nothing is guaranteed. Dice can take the best laid plan and send it flying out the window. And we've seen those games happen. But to have a list that can at least compete at those higher levels, I feel like I've gotten this thing really, really close. So some of it's dialed in, and some of it we're still testing and tweaking as I'm trying to get those final last pieces. With all that being said, let's take a look at the Canoptic Harvest and my Necron list that I will be bringing tonight against Lane. All right, so here we go. This is the Canoptic Harvest. Now, there is a couple interesting little things you might notice in here. We'll talk about those shortly, that are going to be appearing today in this list. One thing is, I did remove the Scarabs from this list. The main reason I removed the Scarabs was just for points. I feel like if I take out the Vault, I will probably be able to put the Scarabs back in, but we'll come back and address that in a little bit. Let's just get over into the list, and we'll talk about those changes afterwards. All right, so first, we'll start off with the Doomstalkers. These guys have been tried and true in here. Very powerful, very good firepower. I like them. I love them. Based around a Canoptic control node as well as the Sovereign Cornell, these guys can get +1 to hit, and stand still also to get +1 to hit for heavy. So these guys have been reliable with their blast weapons, 3 damage, high strength. I love these guys. They've been great for me, so they're sticking around, especially in the Canoptic theme list. Moving on to my Canoptic Reanimator, he's basically just an auto-include. Anybody who plays Necrons knows that Canoptic Reanimator is just amazing. 12-inch aura to be able to give an additional D3 on those reanimations. Never leave home without him. And this game is at my home, so I don't even have to leave home without him. Now we'll move over into the 6 spiders. Now the spiders have been kind of my bread and butter. With their particle beamers and being able to use the strat to re-roll wounds, this can really lead into fishing for a lot of devastating wounds. Even though it's 1 damage, it's still 1 damage that pushes right through inbounds and saves and everything else. Being around a Sovereign Cornell or Canoptic control node, these guys will be able to hit on 2s in the shooting phase, and then for 1 command point, reroll all the wounds if they're so they'll be able to reroll all the wounds at half range. If they're near the character with the Sovereign Cornell, then they will count as a character buff and be able to reroll all wounds regardless of the range, as long as they're within their gun's range. And now let's talk about him. Let's talk about our character with the Sovereign Cornell. We have our Technomancer. He will have a Canoptic Cloak. This is my converted Technomancer. He is a Canoptic Cloak, so he has a little bit extra speed in the Sovereign Cornell to be able to give that count as character buff for my Will Be Done, as well as stratagem purposes, as well as being able to heal, which will come into effect, especially with some of my bigger models that I have in this army. And we have our Brick of Lichguard. So with this Brick of Lichguard, we are going to lead it with a regular Lord. So the Lord does have Resorb. And then we have a Technomancer as well to get the Feel No Pain, because why not? And 2 Crypthralls, which I feel like, with the Crypthralls, I feel like the Crypthralls are still an auto-include with the Lichguard, just to be able to have those 2 additional models in there to make this squad a Death Star of sorts on defensive purposes. Got to have the Noble in there to get the -1 to wound, and got to have the Techno for the Feel No Pain. These guys have the Sword and Shield combo, so they got the 4-up invuln. Basically, they are just walk onto an objective, stand there and hold it. That's their goal, that's their game, and that's how they play. Not really too much to say about these guys. You know, we've seen them a couple times on the channel. We've seen them in our game stores and everything else. They're tough. They're hard to kill. They're very durable, and they're great at doing their job, which is stand on an objective and hold it for the duration of the game. Very, very tough to kill. Very happy with these guys, and I think they do really well in this list, where I don't have a lot of points to invest in units to do that, like Necron Warriors and such. So it's better to invest the points into one unit like this because of how much I have invested into other things such as the vehicles. I also have a single Locust Destroyer. The single Locust Destroyer is 30 points. He is doing nothing else except being a model that can just walk on an objective or float into a corner for engage on all fronts or any other secondary that may come into notion. He is only 30 points. My list came out to exactly 2,000. If I would have had the extra 10 points, I probably would have turned him into a squad of Scarabs for the extra wounds in that. But 30 points, single Locust, 7-inch move, toughness 6, not expecting him to do much except score me some points in the secondary game. Now we get over into the stuff that I'm testing for today. First of all, I'm debuting. I just got him built. Oh my gosh, I got him built. Anyone else who's built this thing knows what I'm talking about. And I love him already, and I can't wait to try him out. The Canoptic Tomb Stalker. This guy, between the two, I picked the Stalker first because I feel like I like the Sentinel. I liked what the Sentinel could do around objectives. It's kind of cool to be able to gain the Armor of Contempt buff and get an additional AP when fighting on objective markers, which I think is very cool, is very good, and may have its place. But I like that this guy doesn't require to be near the objectives and can fight elsewhere. With his Gauze Slicer at 8 shots, as well as the fact that he's flat 2 damage with an initial AP 1 in combat, he seems like the better choice, but I do want to try the other one out when I eventually get one. It's tough to say. It's tough to say, but I do feel like the Sentinel initially is the better choice. This guy comes with a 4-up invuln and has the ability to deep strike. I am very much looking forward to trying him out and seeing if he can make a stand in the list, especially being a Canoptic unit with his deep strike and everything else. Ophidian Destroyers seem to kind of have the same role as what I would like to do with him, except Ophidians kind of do it better. Still 9 wounds for 3 models in the unit. This is a 9-wound model, but this is a 9-wound model with a toughness 9 and a 4-up invuln. So I'm curious to see how well he does, or if he just gets absolutely pasted off the table really quick. Granted, Ophidians seem like they do the job better because they can come off the table, go back on, etc., etc., etc. They're able to consistently keep playing that game. However, the Sentinel seems more, or the Stalker seems more durable than the Ophidians are. So even though the Ophidians can maneuver around the table better than the Sentinel could, the Stalker can, it seems like the Stalker may be more durable and be able to stand its ground in a corner and locked down a corner while I'm trying to figure out other ways to get in other corners. It might be a good tandem to just run one of each, a squad of Ophidians and a Sentinel, or the Stalker, to be able to do both jobs. Eventually, I'll get this right and stop calling him the Sentinel. All right, and last, but surely not least, you voted for him. Here he is, the Tesseract Vault. So, the Tesseract Vault is 370 points of just absolute devastation. He only has a 24-inch range on his guns, but it still seems pretty impressive. 24 wounds. He is a vehicle, so he will be able to get my feel no pain buffs and everything else for my spiders, as well as the fact of being able to reanimate for basically up to 3d3 wounds a turn. One for his reanimation, one for the reanimator being nearby, and then the Technomancer can pop him another time for another heal. So as long as this guy can survive and not get killed, he can heal quite a bit. His damage is interesting. His weapons are even more interesting. And looking at how large models are deployed, there is some interesting tech behind possibly putting this guy in strategic and having him come on to be safe and still in range to shoot and hit. So I'm definitely going to be liking to see him today and how this works out. All right, so it's tough to stay with the Vault. I don't know if competitively moving forward I would use the Vault. I feel like the Transcendent Catan would be a stronger choice because of how it can float around the table. Like I said, with having Ophidian destroyers in there as well might be the better way to go and some of that stuff, but we're not worried about that right now. Like I said, I want Scarabs in there. I would like maybe to have the Ophidians in there. And I would like to, there's some other tweaks as well. But that's not what we're doing today. We're trying out the Vault. We're going to try and see if the Vault can have play. Granted, going into Lane's destruction and with some of the devastating firepower the Marines are able to bring, even with Oath of Moment getting shifted soon and not re-rolling wounds, which I'm happy to hear as a not Space Marine player, I still would like to see the Vault on the table in general. Now, I was mentioned something about how the Vault interacts, and that's something we were looking into. And it's interesting on how the deployment occurs. So if you look in the rules commentary, there's a section where it talks about deploying large models. And it talks about if you deploy the model, it talks about its base. And the first thing it says is that if the base cannot be placed in your deployment zone, then you can place it all the way to the back, and then it's may dangle outside of it, but then during that first turn, it can't do anything. Can't move, can't shoot, can't advance, can't charge, can't nothing. Well, here's the thing with the Vault. The Vault, its base fits nicely everywhere. And it also talks about in that same entry with deploying these large models that it also says when you place them on the field or deploy them for the first time out of strategic, being placed within 6 inches of a table edge. So it does address that. On the last part of this, after it talks about everything with the unit doing all that stuff, it does say some models have parts of it that hang off the edge, etc., 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 because of it being larger. As long as the base fits within those required places, parts are able to dangle away. So this means that that base for the Tesseract Vault can fit within the 6 inches to come on from strategic reserve. Its wide body is going to dangle, but the base fits. So it can move on from strategic and still function normally, which means that I can put it in a position where it's going to be able to get those shots in range on that first time it appears. So at least we'll be able to get one good solid round of shooting before Lane almost inherently picks it up. I've had a glance at Lane's list. He's got some firepower. So the Vault is in trouble. We're in danger. But we gotta try it out. Got to try it out and see. Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe it'll stand the test of time and it'll need to go up into other firepower lists. Tower doing a little bit better now, so it's kind of like, I don't know how much I want to do into that. But with towering not really having any effects with runes and stuff like that, it can hide. So there's a lot more questions than I actually have answers until I can actually put this thing on the table. So to hear all those thoughts and all those feelings on it, gonna have to wait till the end of the battle report when I actually get a chance to review the thing and decide whether I think that thing's gonna be competitive or not. Especially going into the firepower the lane's bringing, it'll be a good valid test. All right, guys, I've talked enough about this. Hopefully we'll see you over at the game, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.